Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The administration today announced it will suspend DACA. That's President Obama's program that grants special work permits and amnesty from deportation to illegal immigrants who arrived in this country as minors. You might think the move would set off a national debate about immigration, the pros, the cons, how much of it we're going to need going forward. But no. Instead, the educated classes became completely hysterical, lecturing the rest of us about the racism of the middle of the country. Watch this.
We can think about the policy issues, but there's this kind of cultural undertow that this is really red meat to his base, that it's really speaking to a kind of deep-seated cultural anxiety about the changing nature of the country.
There are people who feel threatened by immigrants, and they're using this concept of unconstitutional as a shield.
He might do away with DACA, which is another moral line that he would be crossing, which is something that would be enforcing, advancing a white supremacy agenda, and also against what majority of Americans want.
Well, this isn't just demagoguery, though it is that. It's also nonsense. Whatever you think of the effects of DACA, no administration could continue it because it's illegal. U.S. immigration laws are pretty straightforward. If you're in the country illegally, you're supposed to leave. If you think that's mean or counterproductive or unfair, take it up with your legislators. Only Congress can change the law. The president is bound to faithfully enforce the laws of the United States. He or any president can simply invalidate those he doesn't like. Former Cabinet Secretary Gutierrez doesn't think this is a meaningful distinction, but if you want to live in a constitutional democracy where laws are more powerful than men, nothing is more important than that. But to our leaders, there is indeed something more important than that: political power. They've concluded that mass immigration means new and reliable voters, and that means more power for them. If they need to subvert the rule of law to get that power, they will, and they have. In states across the country, politicians now actively boast about ignoring the law. They unilaterally declare federal statutes invalid in their cities. They bar ICE agents from buildings. They give driver's licenses and in-state college tuition to people who are here illegally. They refuse to prosecute immigrants for crimes that have nothing to do with immigration, in effect giving preference to illegals over their own citizens. Congress is little better. They look away as the laws they pass are mocked and flouted. In 2012, Barack Obama decided to take this reasoning to its rational endpoint. He just openly ignored the law by creating DACA. That move was sold as a way to protect people who don't remember living in any country except this one. But like almost everything you hear from Washington, that was mostly propaganda. People who came here illegally at 15 were just as eligible for amnesty under DACA as those who'd arrived as infants. DACA beneficiaries were not supposed to receive benefits. Remember that? That turned out to be a lie, too. In New York, for instance, DACA recipients qualify for both Medicaid and cash assistance. But this isn't simply about DACA. The program was indefensible, but it's just one manifestation of a bigger and much more ominous trend. The globalist elite has given up on concepts that have defined civilized states for more than 2 millennia: borders, citizenship, and the rule of written law itself, all abandoned in favor of a worldwide rule by unaccountable technocrats. Just today, former Washington Post reporter and proud illegal alien Jose Antonio Vargas posted a picture of his fake Social Security card on Twitter. His fellow clever people applauded. They're not pretending anymore. Watch this.
No border, no nation. Deportation. No border, no nation. Deportation.
We need to make it clear that immigrants and immigration are here to stay.
You're about to graduate into a complex and borderless world.
Secretary Clinton said this, take a look, quote, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open borders sometime in the future." Is that her dream? Is that what she wants? Open borders, an open market?
Yeah, Jake, I'm glad you asked it that way, because I don't think we can dignify documents dumped by WikiLeaks.
Right, that's fair. Is this document then, is it accurate? Did she tell Brazilian bankers that
I have no way of knowing that. I have no way of knowing.
Well, you could ask her.
Yeah, she did, in fact. By the way, nobody was talking like this 10 years ago, at least in public. This is all happening pretty fast. So it might be worth pausing to think through the consequences of these new attitudes. Borders, laws, citizenship, they're big things to give up, especially when they're done by executive fiat without giving a vote to the masses who have to deal with the actual consequences of these changes. When you refuse to control your borders, you're saying that the country doesn't belong to its people, but to the whole world. When you give away citizenship to anyone who wants it, you're saying that citizenship isn't worth anything. Is that really our position now? Congressman Henry Cuellar is a Democrat from Texas, and he joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been a good time talking to you.
So what's your position on this, that the United States should always allow minor illegal immigrants to stay in the country and to get amnesty and then citizenship, or that they should be deported under certain circumstances? Or what are the rules that you're pushing for here?
Well, first of all, I don't believe in open borders. I think any country has the responsibility to enforce its laws. No ifs, no buts about it. Number two, the question that we have before is, when we talk about dreamers, are we talking about we have a problem with the implementation of this? Should it be the executive, it should be Congress, or do we have a basic issue with the public policy? In this case, we're not talking about criminals. We're talking about kids. The average age of them were brought over here at the age of 6. They're not 26. The average age. We educated them. So what do we do with those individuals? Do we use prosecutorial discretion to look at those kids? And I think we ought to look at what's in the best interest of the country.
Okay, it's a tough question, and nobody's saying it's not a tough question, and that's why we're having this conversation. But by acting or by explaining your position, you're setting a rule that people can look back at and say, oh, there's the rule. So what is the rule? People are going to continue to come here underage, are going to be brought here by their parents for a long time to come. And what should we do with them? Should we always let them stay if they're under 16? I mean, what do you think we should do?
Well, first of all, again, we start off with a basic premise. Every country has to enforce the laws at the border. That's it. Second of all, let's look at... But we're not enforcing the law.
Hold on. If we're going to enforce our laws, then we say, I'm sorry, you got to leave. Leave now. I mean, that would be enforcing our laws, but we're not doing that.
Right. Then we look at the circumstances. That we have an individual that violated the law. The parents did that. No ifs and no buts. They did that. But are we going to punish the kids because of the sins of the parents that they committed 20 years ago? We educated these kids. We spend millions of dollars educating these kids.
I get it. And I'm not, by the way, I'm not minimizing what you're saying, because I think these are real problems, and they are. But I'm just wondering, like, going forward, this is going to happen a lot. Every year for decades, anybody who makes it across the border with children in tow, by the standards you're articulating, gets to stay. Is that what you're saying? And if that's not what you're saying, then under what circumstances are we willing to say leave?
Well, we're talking about these kids have been here for, some of them for 20 years or longer. Now, when it comes into those newly recent individuals, I think we got ICE already working on that to make sure that we enforce the laws on those recent immigrants that have come in. But if somebody's been here 20 years or so, they got here, they've been educated. We spend money on getting them educated, going to college. Some of the military, members of our military, some of them are teachers. What are we supposed to do? Just go ahead and throw them out?
Well, here's what we should do, is be clear with the rest of the world what our rules are, because otherwise we're going to draw, and we've done this before. DACA did it in 2014. It drew a ton of families from Central America. GAO found that. What are we telling the rest of the world? That as long as you hide successfully from ICE for 20 years, you can stay? I mean, what's the time limit? How long do you need to evade the law before we give you citizenship? Like, what is the rule? I think it's fair to ask what the rule is. I still don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been this prosecutorial discretion that both Democratic and Republican administrations have used for many years. Now, let's go back to what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We were enforcing the laws. In fact, I was one of the ones that thought that we ought to make sure that we apply the same rules to everybody like we apply it to the Canadians and the Mexicans. That is, they come in, we treat them a particular way. Everybody else gets treated very differently. I feel that that we ought to enforce the laws. Now, we do have some people here that have been here for a while. So what's in the best interest of the country? Do we just go ahead and kick out individuals that have been here for 20 years that were here because of the sins of their parents?
I'm sorry, with respect, you're not answering. Look, I don't think what you're saying is crazy, but you're not answering my question. And you've said three times, I'm for enforcing the laws, but then you're not for enforcing the laws. You're for making exceptions to the laws, as you just explained.
Well, again, Tucker, with all respect, I am. we start with the basic. We enforce the laws that we have. Do we look at circumstances? Do we look at prosecutorial enforcement, which is something that
how many years do you have to stay here? How many years do you have to stay here before we don't kick you out?
Again, this is something that I think Congress will have to debate, and this is why I feel that Congress should be debating this issue, and we are going to be debating this issue.
Well, you're in Congress. What's your answer? What do you think the time limit should be?
This is, again, something that we're going to be looking at, and I think we ought to be looking at this. I mean, the same thing is like, if I ask you...
You don't have an opinion on it?
If I ask you, Tucker, are you going to be, should you be responsible for the sins of your parents that they committed 20 years ago? This is something that we all need to have a healthy debate, and we are going to have this in Congress.
Look, Congressman, let's not be demagogic about this. You're a lawmaker. You could set the standards for the rest of the country.
Look,
okay,
I'm
right.
Giving
So I'm just asking: at what point do we stop enforcing the law? Like, how long does the person have to evade getting caught before? But you're not going to answer the question. So let me ask you this:
Listen, no. Let me finish. You made a comment. Okay. Let me finish. Nobody's trying to demagogue the issue. Nobody's trying to demagogue. I'm trying to give you what we need to do. We start off with a basic premise. We're going to enforce the laws, correct? We agree on that. Now,
that's not the premise you're starting with. That's not the premise you're starting with.
That's a basic premise. I start off.
That's not
we
what
enforce
you're
the laws. Okay. We enforce the laws. Now, the question is, what do we do about these special circumstances? When you look at the law, do we have an issue with?
I'm sorry. You're spinning. I've asked you the same question 4 times, which is, at what point do we decide we're not going to enforce these laws that you say we're going to enforce?
Nobody's spinning. With all respect, you keep asking the same question.
I'm just getting frustrated because you're not.
No. You keep asking the same question.
You're evading the question.
You keep asking the same question. I'm going to give you the same answer.
Which is, what's the standard? The rest of the world is watching. They want to know, how do I get past the laws of the United States? If I stay there long enough, then the laws are waived and I get to get government benefits. My kids get in-state tuition. I ultimately get amnesty and become a citizen. That's what you're espousing, and I'm asking, what's the standard? How long do you have to stay here until you get that? And you won't answer. Very quick. You've got 26,000 people unemployed in the 28th District of Texas. You've got an 8% unemployment rate, 3 points higher than your state's unemployment rate. It's pretty high. Why would you want a single job in your district to go to someone here illegally, one of the so-called dreamers, before it went to an American citizen in your district? I don't understand that.
Well, it's very simple. And it's the same demagoguery that you're now talking about. We give the jobs to the Americans, and any American that doesn't want the job, we're going to give it to somebody that wants to do the job. And remember, these people have been here for many years. A lot of them didn't even know that they were here.
But you've got 8% unemployment. I mean, you think none of those people want the job? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, it's a lot lower than that. It's actually a lot lower than that. It's a lot lower than that.
I just read that about 4 minutes ago. Maybe the numbers are wrong.
The question is, you're putting this in the black and white type of situation. Of course, we want to get we want to create jobs. But remember, these folks got extreme vetting. If you want to talk about extreme vetting, they get vetted.
Hold on. Wait, so you're saying that none of the 28,000, 26,000 people in your district want a job that one of the dreamers has? They don't want those jobs. Is that what you're saying?
Of course they want the jobs, and of course we're creating jobs.
Then why would you be giving preference to someone here illegally over citizens?
They're not here. They're not here illegally. They're not here illegally. What we're looking at, of course, we want to create jobs. And those dreamers are helping. They're working. They're military. What are you going to tell one of those dreamers of military that's defending your rights right now? Are you going to tell them, hey,
I'm just asking you a question about the unemployment rate in your district.
I'm asking you the same thing.
I'm for the military. I mean, I don't know.
What do you tell a dreamer, Tucker, with all due respect, that's defending your rights right now?
Most of them aren't in the military, Congressman. Look, I respect people who are serving our country, no matter where they're from. But I'm not talking about them, as you know.
What do you tell them?
Well, I would say give preference to the American before the illegal.